There are times in life when you realize something has changed and you can't go back. For me, that moment came one bright autumn morning in our little village. The air smelled like pine trees and fresh bread from the bakery down the road. Life was simple and peaceful, the kind of life most people wish for. My husband, Lucas, and I had been married for 12 years. Things weren't perfect, but I thought we were okay. Turns out some problems don't show until they're too big to ignore. That morning started like any other. I woke up to birds chirping outside and soft sunlight coming through the curtains. The smell of coffee brewing floated up from the kitchen. It was our anniversary. I didn't expect anything big, but I hoped he'd at least remember. I picked out a dress he once said made my eyes sparkle and took my time getting ready. When I walked into the kitchen, Lucas was already there, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper. "Morning," he said without even looking at me. "Morning," I replied, waiting for some sign he remembered what day it was. But there was nothing, no flowers, no card, not even a simple happy anniversary. I felt a knot form in my stomach. He wasn't usually the type to forget things like this. I tried to shake off the feeling and sat down across from him, hoping he'd notice the effort I'd put in. He didn't. He finished his coffee, gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, and said, "Busy day at work, see you tonight." Then he left, just like that. I stayed at the table, staring at the empty chair. The kiss he gave me had already faded, and the silence in the house felt louder than usual. I had made pancakes with blueberries, his favourite, but I couldn't bring myself to eat. Instead, I cleaned up the table, put the food away, and told myself it wasn't a big deal. The day dragged on. I did my usual chores, cleaning the house, folding laundry, but something felt off. By evening, I had cooked his favourite dinner and set the table with the nice plates we hardly ever used. I even lit a few candles to make it special. Lucas came home late, looking tired and distracted. "Smells good," he said as he took off his coat. "Happy anniversary," I said, trying to sound cheerful. He paused for a second, then gave me a weak smile. "Oh, right, happy anniversary." No apology, no explanation, just that tired smile. He sat down, barely touched his food, and started talking about work, a new supplier, some issue with an order, as if it were any other day. I nodded along, pretending to listen, but inside, something felt like it was breaking. After dinner, he went upstairs, saying he needed to check some emails. I stayed behind, staring at the candles as they melted. The knot in my stomach tightened until I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed my coat and walked outside. The cool night air stung my face, but I didn't care. I had no idea where I was going, I just needed to get away. My feet carried me down the familiar streets until I ended up in front of a small tavern at the edge of town. The warm glow from inside and the sound of quiet chatter drew me in. I pushed open the door, and a mix of wood smoke and spiced cider filled the air. I found a seat at the bar and ordered a drink. As I slowly sipped it, trying to sort through my jumbled emotions, a voice beside me said, "Long day?" I turned to see a man with a kind smile and warm eyes. He was tall, with dark hair and a calm, easygoing vibe. "You could say that," I replied with a faint smile. "I'm Daniel," he said, holding out his hand. "Anna," I said, shaking it. We started talking, and before I knew it, hours had gone by. Daniel had this way of making me forget everything else. His laugh was contagious, and he shared stories that made me smile. He really listened, something Lucas hadn't done in a long time. For the first time in years, I felt noticed. As the night went on, the conversation slowed, becoming more personal. At one point, he reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was warm, and for a moment time seemed to pause. "You deserve to be happy," he said softly, his voice low and comforting. He pulled me towards him, and I went along with him. Something stirred inside me. a longing I didn't even know was there. I hesitated, caught between what I knew was right and what I wanted. But before I could decide, he leaned in and our lips met. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant, but it quickly deepened, filled with a need we both understood. He did a lot with me that I can't even explain, and he made me unconscious. But my husband never treated me that way. He always kept his distance from me. However, what Daniel did to me gave me immense pleasure, and I started going to him every night. It brought me a lot of peace. When we finally pulled away, reality hit me like a cold splash of water. "I should go," I whispered, my voice shaky. "I get it," he said, his eyes showing a mix of regret and understanding. I left the tavern and walked home. The night air cooled my flushed face, but my heart was still racing. When I got home, the house was dark and quiet. Lucas was already asleep. I stood there in the hallway for a while, the weight of what had happened pressing down on me. The next few days felt like a blur. I tried to act normal, but my mind kept drifting back to that night. The memory of Daniel's touch lingered, making it hard to focus. Then, one evening, Lucas mentioned that a new client was coming over for dinner. "He's just moved here. I think you'll like him," he said. When the doorbell rang, my heart skipped a beat. I opened the door, and there stood Daniel, looking as surprised as I felt. "Anna," he said quietly. Lucas walked up behind me, oblivious to the tension. "Oh, you two know each other?" he asked with a friendly smile. "We've met," Daniel said, his voice steady, but there was something in his eyes I couldn't read. Dinner was uncomfortable. I could barely eat, my mind spinning with questions and worries. After dessert, Daniel asked if he could speak to me alone. Lucas, trusting as ever, nodded and left us in the living room. "What are you doing here?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice calm. "I didn't plan this," he said, stepping closer. "But now that I'm here, I can't pretend I don't care about you." His eyes searched mine, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. "This isn't right," I said, backing away slightly. Lucas doesn't see you the way I do," he interrupted gently. "You deserve to be more than just someone in the background." Tears filled my eyes. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but deep down I knew he was right. In the end, I told Lucas everything. There were no fights, no yelling, just a quiet understanding that our marriage had ended long before Daniel came into the picture. We divorced soon after. Lucas kept the house and I moved into a small apartment nearby. Daniel and I tried to make it work, but some things are too messy to fix. Eventually we went our separate ways. Still, I don't regret what happened. It showed me that sometimes you have to lose who you were to find out who you really are.